Everyone's in sales. Let's talk a little bit about what this means, okay? Every time I talk around the country, people say, you make a point. Everyone is in sales, Ryan. And really that's the catch. And you have this in front of you, which Michelle and team were so kind to, put as for attendees, because some of the things we're going to cover, I spent a year writing. We're not going to be able to cover them all in detail today, but I think you'll get the idea. And my goal out of this session is for you to walk away with 2 to 3 ideas that go, man, that made me think. And I was just at a session 2 days ago at a big national session, and everybody came up and said, something hit me where you were. And that's all I want. You're not going to be able to absorb all this. There's a lot of information, but I want you to get the highlights, and that's what we're going to do. So who would say here that they define themselves that traditionally that they're in sales? Okay. Here's some reasons I think we are. I think that if you are dealing with a problem, let's say with your kid or your grandkid at school, and you're talking to their teacher, your principal, and you're trying to say, Johnny is not a behavior problem, Johnny has an attention problem. And the teacher says, no, he's a bully. He's like, no, you don't understand. Johnny has this. You are selling. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that, but that's not sales. That's where my mindset came from. EIS, I just want to point out as we go through this, is everyone's in sales. So you're going to say EIS the rest of the way through. Just understand I'm just abbreviating to make it easy, just some housekeeping. You'll see in the next line, we're reframing the word sales, which I take 3 chapters in the book you have in front of you to do, and I'm doing in 90 seconds. I'm reframing the word sales to communications. Communications, plural. 2-way communications. A lot of people, how many people here run their company or are C-level type executive? Okay, so we got most of it. A lot of people look at sales as some kind of magic guys that you go hire with a book of business, and they go do their thing out with expense accounts, and they're fast talkers, and they got the gift of gab, and they're supposed to go into sales. That's one of the reasons I was motivated to do this and talk about these sessions, is because I think that's what sales is not about. And so we're calling it communications because a lot of people say, well, if I run a press room or I run a mailing department or I run a finishing department or whatever I do, what do I have to do with sales? I got to get product out. I got to make things happen. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But that's what we're going to say. You're going to see the word communications, plural, inserted for sales the rest of the way out. We're reframing that because a lot of people are like, well, that's not so scary. Then I don't have to go out in an expense account and go wine and dine and whatever the salespeople do. So I'm in communications, but I'm not in sales, and that was a way to draw people into the book. So a higher level developed sales is what we're after. But common views of sales, we have things like this gimmicky stuff. Who's heard this? Ryan, it is so fantastic to meet you, Ryan. And Ryan, you being here at Chateau Elan, Ryan, is wonderful, Ryan. So you learned that people like their name. That's awesome. People like their name. We all know people like their name. That's not what we're talking about. Or things like body mirroring. I kid you not, I've seen this repeated times of people literally imitating when they're trying to sell something, everything I do. They're like, I'm just standing there in the hallway over the years, and then they stand there in the hallway over the years. Or I actually would have fun with it. I'd kind of cross my arms, and they'd kind of cross their arms. And I'd kind of stretch back, and they'd kind of stretch back. But again, they went to some sales training, some what I call gimmicky stuff. Yeah, do people want, if you're laid back at your desk, should you sit back and not make them feel uncomfortable? Yes. Do people like to hear their name? Yes. But let's not overdo it. Or the death grip handshake guy. I was playing tennis a few years ago, and I tore a tendon in my wrist, and the guys kept coming shaking my hands. I'd meet them, and they're like, put it there, and man, I'm like, oh my gosh, but they've learned the grip of the power handshake at a seminar. That is not what we're talking about today. So what we are talking about is authenticity, listening, honesty, integrity. And you may be thinking, isn't that kind of like old school? Maybe. I thought this guy had kind of spent time in the social media sphere. I do. Well, so which one do you like? Both. So what you're saying is the old school's back in style? A lot of it. You're saying the new school doesn't matter? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying it's right here. And I think around the country what I've seen is people are overthinking stuff. We're going to talk about that. So when we seek to think about things, I said, we got to be persistent as communicators, but not a pest. That's just common sense. We don't want to be, whatever we're doing, we want to be persistent and thorough, but not a pest. Do we not all seek to communicate things that are important to us? Don't we want people to agree if we're passionate about something? Don't we want them to see our point of view? I do. I mean, if you don't care, I guess you're not trying to sell anything. But if you do, I can't tell. We got to get the coffee going. If a press room manager, I'll just put this as an example, a part goes down, a machine's down, and product cannot go out the door, and they need a part or a machine or something. I saw this the other day in one part of the country. Is that person not trying to sell about how quickly they can get that there? And I saw this the other day. Production was at a standstill, and they were in a panic mode with mailing, bindery, and a scanner that was needed. You better believe they're calling everybody they have to try to sell them to get it there. Now they're like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm selling at that point. That's the whole idea. I made my point, but just so you can see what we're doing. So here's the overview. We're going to cover communications, like I said, plural versus communication singular. You may be saying, what does that mean? It's a two-way process versus a one-way process. I'm going to come back to that. We're going to talk about your brand of communications. Remember, sales is communications. Brand of communications. We are going to talk about our time, which we all struggle with, and communications. By the way, many of these are chapters in the book you have in front of you. Who has a piece of paper in front of them? I want you to do a little exercise. You'll have fun with this. All right, we're printers. We do. You should see some of these social media conferences. Like, can I sign my iPad? I guess. I mean, I guess it'll work. I like iPads. I'm just not good with my stylus. All right, just sign your name like you're signing a check at your dinner or whatever. Just sign your name. Okay. Everybody done? All right, now do the exact same thing with your opposite hand. I love the laughter. It doesn't matter where you just hear the chuckles. All right, now here's the question. The first time, was that hard to do? The first time with your easy hand, was that hard to do? Or did you just do it? I mean, how many times we signed something today? You know, I can do it like, second time. Could you sign your name? That's the question. Could you do it? Was it a little awkward? Was it, but if you broke your preferred hand and you had to sign with your other name, would you get better at it? Would you probably ever be as comfortable as your preferred hand, even if you practice a lot? And the answer is probably no. This is where I'm going to do a session Friday about this whole human behavior called adaptive communications. By the way, that's the center part of the book you have in front of you. We prefer to sell and live where our preferred hand is. I want you to think about it as a session. Stress comes, problem comes, employees come, vendors come. We default to our preferred hand. We may need to be operating with this hand, but we immediately go there. So I'm trying to give you some examples. I spend a lot of time teaching college working adults, and I'm a teacher at heart. So you go, oh yeah, that's the thing he did. That's how adults learn. So be thinking about that. You will default to certain styles. You'll go, God, I shouldn't have done that. Go over here, but you'll default back over here. Okay. All right. So what's the expression? I'm sure you guys have heard 8 trillion times, like have, of what the expression thinking in the word box. Think outside. All right, so good. We're not going to do that today. We are not going to think outside the box. We are going to break the box. And I wish I could tell you, as soon as I started doing that 2 years ago, I had 3 industry conferences going, can we do break the box sessions next year? Sure. Absolutely. You know, every idea is copied by another idea. But the idea I have is this. For the next hour before golf and everything else, I want you to really think about your business. And I'm going to ask you some questions that are going to challenge you. And I ask a lot of CEOs these questions. I'm doing consulting work around the country, and they're like, man, I don't know. I got to really think about that. And those are the questions you want to get deep to. So here's a question. I want you to engage in as-if thinking. From an academic standpoint, as-if thinking is as if you could change your organization to the way you want it to be now. It's possible, Ryan. I can't change my organization right now. I understand the logistics. I'm saying if you could. Second, what if you could change things? So if you had a blank sheet of paper and you're one of the chief executives, and I said, draw what your organization should look like. How should estimates go out? How quickly should jobs turn? Do you have are you seeing your customers as frequently as you should be and adding the value you should be? Do you have the right people? We've heard good to great. I've taken several companies through it. Get the people in the right seats in the bus. I'm sure you've all heard that. But what I got better out of the book was, do you even have the right people to begin with? The right people will take you where you want to go no matter what you're selling. And a lot of us settle, I did in my career, for people that were pretty good. I don't know why. We spent more time with those people than the people that were the stars. I'm sure you know what I mean. Here's the question. Would your organization look exactly the same as it does right now if you could redesign it on that blank sheet of paper? Or would you simplify or make some things easier? How many would make things a little bit different? We're here to learn. So, second question. You've been given let's just say $5 million to go start whatever your passion is. You can walk away from printing. You got plenty of money. You're good to go. And, you don't have to even repay it. It's just a gift. How many, assuming they're competent, how many employees that you have working for you would you take with you? All of them? Some of them? Few of them? What'd you say? Some of them? You have a lot of people that say, like, the question is, I want you to consider is one thing. Don't settle for anything less than the best. And one thing I got out of reading Steve Jobs' biography, it was a 600-page book, I'm an avid reader, was Steve, I didn't care for his style, how he treated people. But one thing I did learn was they would never hire an executive that wasn't A+ level, meaning that if you had a VP, they would not bring in a guy that was A-. The idea was, ultimately over time, the other guys would pull down their performance a little bit. And rightly or wrongly, I'd still believe they may be the most valuable company in the world, I think, or one of them. So something work with that. All right. So I think we just saw it in the video. I was watching the session. Our world is rapidly changing. It's incredibly busy. I mean, who agrees with that? I mean, can you go back in time? We just saw all this tragedy in Boston that just breaks our heart. And you can go back, and I was saying this just 2 days ago. And it's almost hard to remember that only was 9/11 of 2001 before things scrolled across our TV screen nonstop. You remember when that started? Think back. That's when it started. But now, you go sit there in the restaurant, and what's happening? Things are scrolling across your TV screens. Texts are coming in. Emails are coming in. Tweets are going out. It's overwhelming. My question as we go through this, have we changed as human beings to be able to absorb more information? Because Twitter came out, and LinkedIn came out, and this came, or do we have more, we're going to get to this later, do you have more hours that you've magically developed? All right. So who feels sometimes our world's a little bit impersonal? I'll fire you an email. I'll shoot you an email. I'll do this. Do you feel maybe some businesses have lost the personal touch? So what do we do? And everyone's in sales, when I do like book signings or whatever, is as a mindset and it's a philosophy of let's get back to some of the stuff that has always been about human beings. I didn't think of this. This is how human beings relate to each other. But I felt it was important. After spending enough time for a few years in social media and started watching, when I'd be talking to an audience and everybody's encouraged to be tweeting up everything, and I could say, hey, everybody, I say, everybody pay attention. And they're like, he tweeted, everybody look up and pay attention. That doesn't resonate with me. I come from the printing world, 20-something years of doing that. But I also understood that our printing world was rapidly evolving, and I saw that, about 2005. And talking about my dad, we sat down and I developed one of the first marketing service provider companies out there, according to Michael Macon of PIA. I didn't know what I was even doing, but I knew our customers needed more. So I share these things to share my experiences and not to say I have every answer, but to make you think. Now, as we talk about this, we must focus on the deep whys of customers, not hows and whats. And I'm going to show you a video in just a second, but here's what that means. Most salespeople go out on sales calls and they say something like this when I ride around with them. How are we doing? Oh, you're doing pretty good. I mean, we don't have nothing really too bad to say. Like, okay, well, when's your next job coming in? The whole idea, there's a chapter in the book called The 5 Whys Communication Model. And here's the idea. Let's use something we can all relate to. You've had either you know it or you've had a person relate to it with church. Not making a religious endorsement. I'm trying to talk of an example probably you've heard of. If you said to a neighbor, hey, how come you don't go to church on Sunday? They're like, actually, I like mowing my grass on Sundays. Like, oh, okay, that's cool. Most people stop right there. But the idea to really get deeper is to say, well, how come you like mowing your grass on Sunday? Well, honestly, that's what I like to do, and I know a lot of people go to church. That's just not my thing. Well, why isn't your thing? I kind of was forced as a kid to go to church every Sunday. Hated it. Why'd you hate it? Because honestly, my parents went, and I saw family and friends went, and they punched their clock for an hour a week, and then the rest of the week acted completely different. So what does that mean? I saw a lot of good people in the community who didn't go that I thought were a lot better people, and I don't want to be a part of that. There you go. Now you've dug to the root of the why. And when salespeople I do this, like, oh, you mean I can keep asking deeper-rooted questions? Like, no, why don't you just stop with, we're pretty happy. That's good right there, because I bet you that really, your competitors in there talking to them and whining them and dining them and giving them every idea, and you stop right there. That's the kind of thinking that we want to focus on. So it's not on hows and whats. So I am going to, at this point, right after this slide, we're going to put this video we just inserted. But before we do, what is this? Everybody, this is an iceberg, right? What is the bigger part of the iceberg, above or below the water? Below. But yet, what do we focus on? What do we see? That's the difference in whys, hows, and whats. When we're prospecting, when we're doing business deals, we focus on hows and whats as human beings. We don't many times ever get to the why. If you don't get to the why, then you don't get to the answer. Can we do the video?
How do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet, they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion.
Excellent.
It's all grounded.
I put that in there to suggest Apple, they got a lot of money, but Apple's making things like, these guys, the phones, the iPods, all the stuff they come out with. We make things too. They've seized an opportunity, and people are now copying the opportunity. But no industry is immune to that. So why you do what you do, hence this, versus how and what is this. And I just want that visual to be there. And if you want to write that down, there's an 18-minute clip there. I actually watched some more of it the other day. I usually only watch 5 minutes, but that guy's name is Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. And I met him through social media a few years ago. And some people have picked this up in the industry and used it. But we connected, and I was writing the book on the why, and I thought that was very applicable. So hopefully that meant something to you. A lot of things up here, so don't get overwhelmed by the words. I just made them so you could see it. Two-way communications versus one-way communication. What does that mean? If we're having a conversation, I'm talking, you're listening, you're fully understanding, you're able to repeat back to me what I've said, and we are truly communications. I was a communications, not even sure, undergrad major. But I'm not talking about Webster's dictionary. I'm talking about my definition. So think communications. Are we actually truly having a conversation? In Covey's last book before he passed away, he wrote about this thing called the talking stick. And the idea was if I gave you this and you said, you talk until I understand. Now, when you're done, I can't interrupt you. I just need to be quiet and listen to what you have to say. Then I need to repeat back to you and say, am I understanding you fully? Forget what it is. It's not a presentation clicker. Just follow the logic. And you say, well, sort of. Then you need to explain to me again. And I need to hear you out. This is very hard to do. It's very hard for me to do. Because what are we trying to do? What do we spend our time trying to do? Cram as much as we can into each day. Multitask. I can't tell you the number of sales calls I go with people around the country. I said, turn the phone off or leave it in the car if you can't remember to turn it on. But we're programmed to try to get as much done as we can. So people are dying to be heard out. We all are, okay? So S at the end simply means a two-way conversation up here. And I'm going to go ahead and point this out about social media since I spent a lot of time. What's the first word of the word social media? Social. So when you hear, Twitter, LinkedIn, and there's Google+, and there's all my kids now jump to Instagram, which I don't understand. I call that, I say, you all are Instagramming? I'm like, Dad, that's not what it's called. I'm like, I don't know what it's called. I'm just thought that'd be a cool name. Well, it's not a cool name, and you're not cool because we don't like Facebook and all this stuff, and nobody goes on that anymore. I'm like, all right, that's fine. So a few years ago, I was on top of the stuff. It changes too fast. The idea is be social. In our industries, we're used to competing with guys down the street, across the city, whatever, and keeping everything close in. What's happened is it goes back to the years of 1700s where you have a neighbor, you'd help them go plow their yard or whatever. People give stuff away. I mean, I write articles every week on whether it's on printing impressions, blogging, or in Canvas or in Print and Promo magazine, and I give my my intellectual property away, which would go, well, wait a second, people could copy that. That's the world we live in now. So you either put out valuable content and information and say, I want you to remember this. This is something that, I'm sure somebody will copy this too. I'm not saying here, but I've been saying this. People can copy your ideas. People can copy and duplicate your ideas, but they can't replicate your DNA. You are you. You can have the same PowerPoint. I could have your PowerPoint, but we're different. We all bring different things to the table. Let people copy you. It's a compliment. A year ago, I was at the Promotional Product Association International in Vegas, and I'm about to go back up there to their one in the East up at Atlantic City. Sure enough, a year later, I was back, and literally, I would say, I can't prove it, but 90% of my stuff was either slightly changed or was in a different consultant's presentation. And they said, we can't prove this, but we wanted to point this out to you. And I'm like, I don't care. I said, you don't care? And I'm like, I'll consider it a compliment. I can't prove it. I'm not going to worry about it. People want to do that, so be it. That's not the thing. So second thing is, you may have heard this a million times, but this is a saying I always say, this social media stuff is a tool, not the tool in your marketing mix. If you're using social media tools, here's one thing I just want to throw out while we're in this session. Either be fully engaged in the game or get out. Don't be halfway in the game. I cannot tell you the number of marketing service providers type companies, using that as a cliche of what we call ourselves for some companies, that have all this stuff up, that all their marketing, integrated communication solution stuff, and I'll have a client ask me to look at it, and a blog post hasn't been done in 6 weeks. They haven't accessed their Twitter account in 3 weeks. They have like a Facebook post for 3 weeks. That's terrible. It's much better not to have it. Trust me. So I just throw that out. And again, this is all about the psychology, like he was saying in the video, not the technology. Google Plus has come out. I haven't mastered Google Plus because I don't even understand. It's changed too quick. It's linked in all my Gmail accounts. And you say, well, I thought you were supposed to know that. It changes too fast. It's about the people. I want you to remember that. All this sounds overwhelming. We're in this great communications change. You just saw it in the videos, how everything's becoming personalized even through print. Everything's changing. Everything's up for grab. Every company's reinventing themselves. Every promotional products company, every marketing firm, every printing company, every packaging company, every company I see is cross-selling a multitude of products. And what's happening to the buyers, they don't have a clue who does what. It is so confusing because every salesperson tells they can do everything. So that is the importance of us looking at, we have an opportunity based on trust, and it's so important, like I said before, it's not the old way, it's not the new way, it's finding this integrated communications. Let me give you an example. I was looking at KFC not too long ago, and for those of you in packaging or printing POP type stuff, walked into their restaurant, and they had a POP, 14-point board stock type board. See, look at that, pulling that out of the old vernacular. Right there, the printed type piece. But what they're doing, they're talking about technology, but they're giving people ways to communicate. You need to give your customers ways to communicate that they want, not what you want. You want to go to the web? Great. I'm sure a phone number's down here somewhere because they really probably don't want to talk to them. I'm sure that's buried in there somewhere. I can't remember. QR code, text them. But the idea is pretty good because they're saying, you communicate to us how you want to communicate to us. That's how, especially this younger generation, I'm going to show you in a moment, people want to say, we don't get those guys. Well, there's a lot of those guys. A lot of those guys. I was saying a moment ago, I just bought a monthly printed magazine, so it shows you I support print, and one of my old fraternity brothers said, are you crazy? Are you insane? I thought you were out consulting with this. I said, oh no, these niche magazines are working great. So I have an editorial staff, and they are composed. I wanted to get back to the community. So I'm letting 4 high school seniors who are on their newspaper staff write. But here's the catch. I have to text them to tell them to check their email. Every time. Did you get the article done? No response. Text them in a group email like, yes, Mr. Sauers, I'll get that. It's like all these extra steps. But they're actually very professional, good kids. But I finally realized that if I wanted to get them in real time, text them to go to look at the email, to respond back to me in email. Every time. Here's another one. Last year at Mother's Day, I took this picture. Here's a Kindle. Now, if a Kindle is the all, be all, and I have a Nook and I have an iPad stuff, but I like being able to write in books when I'm teaching. I don't mind reading a book online. It depends. The main reason I like a book online is because I like my Nook because I can read in the dark. Like if I come up late, I can actually see it. That's the main reason I like it because I can never find what page I'm on. Here's what it says that you can't see. This is my favorite part. Kindle reads like real paper. What? So you're now trying to make yourself like paper. Or how about this one? Social Media Monthly Magazine. We have a printed magazine complete with the barcode, QR code about Google+, Facebook, etc., being mailed out about social media. What the heck is going on in our world? Everything's crossed up. Integrated communications. So I don't get you through that. I've seen in all sides of it, and it's coming back. The guys can embrace this. It's not, handwritten notes aren't out any more than Twitter's out. It's about figuring out the fit to make and communicate your message. 7 touches. I just want to point this out. I put this for one reason. In prospecting, if you're going back to your company, based on data and research, if you're not communicating with a prospect or a customer or whoever you're trying to develop at least 7 times, you haven't done enough. If you have communicated well over 7 times, you're hitting diminishing returns. Let me give you an example. I had a client of mine that I was getting a package of information from a promotional product company because they were trying to get set up as a distributor, and these guys could handle back-end stuff. I kid you not. When I say 7, this is not 7 voicemails, and this is what I got. Ryan, this is Dave Smith, Eastern Divisional Regional Sales Manager with ABC Company. Ryan, the reason for my call, Ryan, is I'm calling today to see if you received the package in the mail that we sent to you in regard to your inquiry. Please call me back. Okay, so finally, we go through. He leaves a couple of voicemails. I try to return every call, but I travel a lot these days. And, so finally, like the third message, they're all within like 5 days. And they're all about, did I get a packet? That's a real compelling message. That really makes me inspired. Ryan, this is Dave Smith, Eastern Regional Division. No, that's not nice. Now, I know you just answered that call. No, I'm out of town, by the way. I cannot control, we have an unlisted phone number. And it's not showing up, and I know you don't know who it is, but that is just, if you want to tell me to go jump in a lake, at least have the courtesy to tell me to do that. I have this saved, by the way. This isn't made up. I would not play it unless I can edit it out. I just want you to give me a simple yes or no. Did you get the packet, and do you want to move forward? Are you freaking kidding me? Yeah. So we go through this. So finally, the guy emailed me. I emailed him back, and I said, got your information. Thank you. I'm good. I appreciate it, because he sent me an email, and that was great. But the next week I am in my office, and it rings, and oh boy, I'm ready. Ryan, Dave Smith? Yeah. Eastern Divisional Regional Sales Manager? Yeah, how'd you know? Lucky guess. From ABC Company? He says, yeah. I said, did you get my packet? Yeah, I did. He's like, oh, I was just calling to check if I got it. He's like, yeah. How'd you know what I was going to say? I'm like, nah, just kind of a mind reader. And he says, and I went through it, and I told him, I said, I appreciate your follow-up, but I'm good. I just was doing this. This really isn't even a hot thing. I appreciate it. I've been out of town. He says, was there anything I can tell my boss that I'm doing well? I'm like, you're very thorough. Very thorough. So that's what we're talking about. 7 touches is not doing that, what that guy did there. One thing I will tell you is great content is what's being discussed everywhere around the country. It's not just good content, it's great content. I put out a video that Michelle got to see. It was a stab, and it's had about 7,000 views in the last month, an animated video of a little modern print sales call, and I'm working on a sequel to it. But great content. I'm not saying it was longer than it should be, my first stab at it. I'm not saying I'm not calling it great. I think it was pretty darn good because it got a lot of views and it got a lot of good comments. But great content will perpetuate your message out there. Good content's not enough. Now, at the social media conference, we had 4 of the top 7 marketing bloggers in the world. One of them wrote the foreword in my book. It's on all the Today shows every morning, and these are all friends of mine who I met through social media, all came back to the real life. Can you create great content for your clients, but consistently? And that's the question. That's hard. I was just telling Michelle a second ago, I was working on a follow-up to my video, and I'm struggling with how to make it good, to make sure it's good. And can you do it consistently? Don't be scared to put great content out there, but make it good, whatever you put out. And that's why I said, especially in the social space, people are going to look. And if you're really not in the game and you follow me on Twitter, and I look and you haven't accessed your account in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I don't really see that you're there. So who here watched the BCS National Championship game? So I'm from Atlanta, so this is a few times I get to speak in Atlanta. All right, well, here's the thing. Who remembers Brent Musburger talking about the girl? But I'm in a hotel room watching this, and I'm like, that's pretty funny. I actually was on Twitter, and all of a sudden I start watching this girl, whatever her name was, I can't even think of her name, trending across Twitter. Well, all these things happen. I share them with you at the speed of traditional media, television, and Twitter, social media, and again, how they come together. So she goes from, she was Miss Alabama. She's dating, if you don't know the story, she's from, I think she went to Auburn. She's dating the Alabama quarterback who now won 2 national championships. She's a pretty girl. But she was working, what I learned later, at Chick-fil-A. So all this goes on, and the next thing I know is, she's added like 20,000 followers in a couple of hours before the game's over. Donald Trump tweets her and says, we'd be interested in having you come be a guest judge at, now think about this. This is how our worlds intersect. Traditional TV, because the game's boring, so this becomes the story. Catherine Webb, that's her name. So the next thing that occurs is he tweets, then a couple of professional athletes wrote some ridiculous things across the public sphere about, Catherine, we'd like to, and then there's all this stuff, and then the quarterback, and I'm like, this is like a PR. This is, for a guy like me, I just watch this, it just gives me comic relief, but I'm going, man, this is bad. Nonetheless, so she accepts, and the quarterback is going to do this thing for Donald Trump. Fast forward a week or two later, she is a correspondent for the Super Bowl, for like one of those Inside Edition type things. Fast forward another couple weeks, she is in the swimsuit issue of Sports Illustrated. Look at our world. Now she has 175,000 followers, and from what I understand, it's about to be in a commercial and be on a reality TV show. That's our world. That's how fast things happen, good or bad. So that's what I want you to think about. Who sees this? Here's my trip, myself included, in the airports. Yep, we all do it. And when I was out, I was speaking to the label printing industry of America, and I was doing that. And the next morning, the guy saw me, and he goes, hey, you're doing the same thing on your phone. I was like, I know I do it. I do it too. I mean, we all do it. But we're all looking down. I was on a subway here in Atlanta about a year ago, and we're sitting there in the subway, and a girl is sitting across from me like this, and she's talking on her phone, and we hear a shriek. And I guess what we later found out is the door opened, and she got her phone and her purse snatched. Not one person saw it. Why? Looking down. So I teach a lot of leadership courses. A lot of you guys are running companies. We've got to look up, see what's going on. So that's our world we're looking at. I want to move to our brand of communications. This is the kind of stuff I see. I was doing a webinar not too long ago. We offer turnkey solutions, one-stop shopping, unparalleled service, strategic partnerships, family-run or privately run business, state-of-the-art technology, value-added solutions, flexible scheduling, high-quality work, rich history, blah, blah, blah. We all say the same thing. This was from like 4 related industries, and I went and copied and pasted from like 20 different websites around the country, took them together, took the most common things and put them there. They all look the same because they look like this. Wonk, 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 wonk. And you might say, what am I supposed to say? I'm not saying you can't say those things, but you've got to get to the why and explain what that means to the end customer, because people are getting younger and younger buying. They don't understand what they're buying. We have salespeople who aren't communicating what their traditional salespeople, what they're doing. People aren't on the same page. They're not fully hearing each other out, and we sound like Charlie Brown. What do customers expect? Good price, service, quality, and then what else are you going to do for them? That's an expectation. They would just want to be educated in a broad brush manner. A lot of guys are like, we want like a, Ryan, like a big, like 11 by 17, kind of like a gloss thing with some color, like a 4-color kind of thing, maybe like 3, 4, 5, 8, 12, 15, 18, 32, 75,000. What? I have no idea what they want. I mean, they don't really care, especially what we're seeing with younger buyers and groups I talk to. They don't really care how the small details are done and really aren't as concerned what's outsourced and what's not. They want you to be responsible and take care of it and just get it off their plate. Because what's changed from the time I began selling printing in the early 90s, there was a print buyer. How many of you still deal with, there's not many people that still have that title. You have a few procurement people, whatever, but it's thrown under a person like a marketing director or whatever. Sometimes you got a graphic designer that knows what's on their screen, and yet we've got to read their mind. I need it yesterday equals slow. We're dealing with a generation that says, I got to get out to go to the ATM. I got to wait to get my book delivered overnight from Amazon. I got to FedEx something. Wait a minute, why do I go to an ATM? Who wants to use cash? That's kind of inconvenient. This is our dilemma. Even with the digital presses stuff you just saw, our dilemma is we're dealing with the mindset of people, including ourselves, that we want everything this second. This is one of the dilemmas I see with printing. You have to remind people, they know it intellectually, stuff has to be manufactured, but they want it right now. They want to download the Amazon book right now, this instant. I want an app, I'm going to download it right now. I don't want to wait. So how do we do that? What are we hearing from customers? I'm drowning, I'm slammed, I'm buried, I'm in the weeds, I'm coming up for air, I'm snowed under, I'm covered up. It's all kind of bleak if you think about it. I say them, you say them. So here's what customers want from your brand. Does that feel good sometimes? I don't ever do that, by the way. Sorry, I got a little stuck there. I was like, oh, man, that feels pretty good. But you know what I'm saying? I think some of you guys would understand what I mean, because you deal with a million things. If you feel that way, what do you think they want? That's not change because we can now print variable data and change. People want stress relief, and we are being asked to do more and more and more with less and less and less, and we're connected with our good friend here, technology, nonstop. This is my best friend and my worst enemy. You know, can you remember a time when you weren't so connected? And now it almost seems if you don't respond to an email at 11 o'clock at night, 1 in the morning, 2, I mean, it just never stops. And so that's where we're at. What do you see there? I'm going to ask you, what do your buyers see? What do you see in this picture? Throw it out. Lady? What type of lady? Young lady? Who sees anybody else? Okay, young lady. Anybody see anything else? Old lady? Can anybody see two things? She's French. All right, what you got, here's what I want you to see. Everybody sees things like that handwriting, different way. Young lady, kind of look from the side, feather, come down, eyelash, nose, chin, whatever. You come over here, to do it this way because I always got to remember. You've got to, hair, looking at face, eye, chin, crooked nose of the old lady, mouth, chin. How do your buyers see you? How do your customers see you? Do you even know? That's your brand. All right. So, of all the choices out there, why are you the best choice? You know, say you've been in business since 1967. This is what I say. So what? Why you? Who cares? Okay. I mean, you've been in business a while. Some people say they've been in business since 1901. That doesn't mean anything to me unless you articulate the why. And the why is we've had 3 successful family generations who built upon the heritage of each one and before. We've had people and family members stay at this company and other people that have non-family members stay at this company and customers, and we've grown with each generation. And we do a lot in this community. That means a lot to me. Not that by itself. Who cares? Because you say you're an MSP. Whoop-de-doo. So does everybody else. I'm throwing that out because everybody says that now. Who cares that you're FSC certified? Well, if you can explain what that means and articulate that to somebody and why that is better and it's a chain of custody thing and how that differs from recycling and all that kind of stuff, it means something. But if not, it doesn't. It's to think through that consciously of those words. Is there anything wrong with talking about weaving that into a conversation? No, but I don't want to use the word elevator speech. No one wants to hear that. But to think about how do you articulate your value and do it in a timely manner with people that don't have an attention span. Because I sit by people all the time, and I'm like, so what do you do? And the next thing, I'm saying it more, sometimes I just say it just to say it because I'm programmed. I don't even know why. I'm kind of actually wanting to not really talk. And then I'm kind of like, if I ask a question, I need to be actively listening. Let me show you this real quick. I took out the slide of our whole worldscape generations, but I want you to see what we have in our workforce. 4 generations in the workforce for the first time ever. We have people working a lot longer, and we have a new generation upcoming. Let me show you what this looks like. I call each of these what people grew up with, and I've done a lot of research. I have a colleague of mine up at Notre Dame, and we worked on this together. And everything's going to be a little, I don't have the exact, if you want it, I can get it to you about the exact dates people were born, but I took that slide out because can't cover all that. But matures in the radio generation, that is 12% of our current workforce. 2020 projected to be 0%. Boomers, which I call the TV generation, 32% of our current workforce. 2020 projected to be 11%. This is a huge generation, as you know. I'm in this one, and I always put what you grew up with. Cable TV, MTV generation, 42% of the current workforce, project to be 28% in just a few, what was that, 7 years? Generation Y, let me show you one thing too. A lot of people lump these two together. I've chosen to break them apart, and I'll tell you why. This group down here they both grew up with the internet. This group did not grow up with the internet. This group did. These guys, like my kids, grew up with handheld devices. They don't want to go to a computer. They just want to do it right here. They don't even care about the computer. The only reason they go to a computer like my 13-year-old is if they're writing something for school. Everything is mobile. It's not at their fingertips. They could care less. 21% of our current workforce right here project to be 41% in just 7 years. So when we're all here, and I don't understand those guys. There's going to be a lot of those guys. And here, 10% of this group here, they're not even in the workforce. 2020, we project 51% of the workforce will be born in or after 1981. So when I was down in Disney World, we have a vacation club down there. I took my kids on the E.T. ride. Dad, this is the greatest ride ever. I was like, oh, that's super. And they're like, who's E.T.? Like, phone home. But that's the reality. And I realized, like, wait a second. I mean, they wouldn't even have a clue this movie came out in, like, the early 80s, or Star Wars. Now, they've seen the remixes, but you go back and you have to consider, when I was giving a speech not too long ago to a younger group, and I mentioned the movie Hoosiers. You remember the movie Hoosiers, the basketball? What's Hoosiers? And I was in Indiana, by the way. I'm like, come on, man. Gotta know the movie Hoosiers. It's not just our industry that's struggling. We just went through it with airline. We just went through it with banks. We just went through it with the automobile industry. These guys are trying to figure out what they're doing. I mean, they've opened a store near my house, closed it, moved one up 5 miles down the road, closed that, because they're over here trying to find a way to make money with these mobile kiosks, because they don't know what to do. They're bringing back old executives to try to turn the company around. That's in the retail space. These guys are another great example. I love Blockbuster. I love bookstores. I could put a bookstore up here just as well. Problem was, they didn't stay on with the times. If you go back 6, 7 years ago, we had the issue of, if your movie's not in stock, get a free coupon and come back. Well, I don't even have on this thing, our friends Netflix. Netflix came into the picture. And if you remember from business, about 3 years ago, Netflix about 2 years ago, tried to kind of diverse their CD mail-outs with their streaming videos. What it was basically, they knew the CDs was fading, so we'll set a separate company, and so you can buy from both, which means we're going to spin this one off, and we just want the streaming part. Backlash, they had to keep them together, if you remember that story. Well, these guys didn't get with the program. These guys come in just like them, and they went real simple. Same thing. Come out of a convenience store or a grocery store. It's $1. There's 2 movies in stock. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll rent that for tonight. It's $1. Simple, because we're overwhelmed with selections. Wait a second, that's getting confusing. I would have thought you had all these choices out there with Amazon. You do, but now it's too many choices. I mean, what do you want? Well, we can do anything. Well, I don't know what I want. So that's the kind of stuff we have going on. It's not just in the printing and graphics business. Let me show you this real quick. This is your blind spot, and all that means is what other people would know about your organization or yourself that you may not see. Let me show you what that looks like. We're not going to focus for a matter of time on these other spots, but for here, the red spot is what's not known to self, what's not known to your company, but what is known to others. This is a model that would suggest, I used to call it beware the blind spot. But if you said, Ryan, I don't want to talk about your warm and fuzzy stuff. I'm a CEO, and I don't want to talk about what my blind spot is. I don't care what my people think. We just got to get the job done. They already know it anyway. Your blind spot in your car, if you're going to run and back into something, you're going to hit it whether you feel like hitting it or not if you don't look. So instead of using that, this is a self-improvement, organizational improvement tool to look at a lens of saying, are we getting true feedback, 360-degree feedback from our customers, from our vendors, from people who work beside us, people who work over us, people who work under us? Or are we choosing to say, I don't want to know, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job, and I don't really care what they have to say? Is it pride? Is it being stubborn? I don't know. But this is a very good model. And again, this is a chapter in the book you can go back and refer to. I want you to see a few brands and tell me what you think. When you see that brand, what comes to mind immediately? Premier. It's kind of like this place. You expecting some cheapskate place where if you need something, they're not going to do it for you? No. Are they selling on price? No. How about these guys? You just see a logo. What comes to mind? Fun, family, expecting a cheapest amusement park ticket you can get in the country? How about these guys? Maybe someone will, if you stand there long enough, they'll open a cash register. There's 12 guys over there. You're like, hello. I'm like, hello. Selling on price. And the fact they have a lot of stuff. Different strategy. When people see your logo, I ask you to think, what do they think? What comes to mind? When they pull up your logo, if you even have customers that have been working with you for years, what comes to mind? Think about that question. And challenge you with this question. Would you buy from you? And all the time with CEO peer groups, they're like, well, I don't know if I would buy from me. I'm like, well, if you don't know if you would buy from you, why would anybody else buy from you? Kind of goes back to our video. We're going to finish up. Remember, we started a few minutes late in the video, so just bear with me. We're going to finish this up. But I wanted you to have that and think about that. A couple things to remember. A whole chapter in the book, Brand of Communications, you can refer to it. But brand is ultimately not what you say. It's what others say. It's not if you have a brand. We all do. It's ultimately built upon trust in the online space or the offline space, which is everything that's not online which we were all used to before all the online world came. Offline is just what that means is all the things that we used to have that now have gone online. And here is, let me show you the brand acronym that I have used a lot of times that I really think gets it. The barometer reading, which is kind of your measurement of your reputation, your attributes, your name, and your distinctiveness. So if I said to you, just as an example, do you know John Smith? He lives in Stone Mountain like you do. Like, yeah, I know John. That was my answer. I didn't say anything negative. So, or if you said, do you know John Smith? He lives in Stone Mountain. Like, oh, man, God, love that guy. When I had back surgery, he mowed my yard for 6 months. I'd trust him with anything. The first response said nothing negative about John Smith, and yet said everything about John Smith. That's what I want you to think about, your brand. So be deliberate, be purposeful, be intentional with everything you do online and offline. Purposeful, deliberate, intentional. Purposeful, deliberate, intentional. Purposeful, deliberate, intentional. I can't say it enough times. People just do all this herky-jerky stuff, and we'll outsource this to our nephew, or we'll bring our nephew in to do some new stuff for us and social media, and we have a marketing firm that does this for us, and we kind of got our sales manager that does this. It needs to be strategic. So I challenge you in dealing with your brand. Don't just try to overcome an objection. Good salespeople can overcome an objection. Great salespeople anticipate the objection. They anticipate the 3 or 4 plays. Well, if I was playing in your golf tournament later, I'd be in the woods the whole time. So that's not a good example. But they anticipate the plays before they happen, and they've thought through them. Everybody take your pen above your head for a second. And point your pen. Now, everybody knows clockwise in this group. The younger group, that's the other thing. They don't carry watches, so they don't even know what that means. So I'm like, well, I don't know how to do it. If you don't know what clockwise means, I can't come explain it to you. All right, so watching your own pen, pointing at the ceiling, I want you to turn your pen clockwise, above your head. Watching your own pen, not me. Now, you're going to slowly start bringing that down, clockwise at the ceiling. Clockwise at the ceiling. Bring it down. You should be about eye level, clockwise at the ceiling. Keep bringing it down now, clockwise at the ceiling, pointing towards the ceiling, bringing it down, start looking down at your pen, clockwise at the ceiling, looking down at it. And which way does your pen appear to be going? Right. What changed? Bingo. Point made. All right. So think about that too. 5 C's of effective communications. Chapter in the book. Are they clear? Are all your communications across all your platforms clear? Clarity, clarity, clarity. Website, literature, salesperson, etc. Consistent. Is everything consistent? What you're saying, what you're doing, online, offline. Consistency is vital to build a brand. Content, 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 content. We talked about it earlier. Connection. We come to events like this because whether we know it or not, human beings need connections. Creativity. How creative is your approach? Are you going to be like the guy, Ryan, this is so-and-so from... Or are you going to have a creative approach that's going to make someone want to talk to you, meet with you, do business with you? I'm going to move past... Well, actually, I'm not going to go through... This is in the book, so I'm not going to cover it for lieu of time. But I want to ask you one thing. I challenge you in your company... This is degrees of competence of your communications, and you'll have a chance to read this, so we're not going to cover this right now. You're either moving forward as an organization or going backwards. There is no such thing, based on research, of staying the same. So... You can't just be goal-oriented on your numbers or whatever. You have to be growth-oriented, meaning you're going to continue to push beyond the goals you set. I love goals, but goals, if you run a 5K, the next thing you're thinking is, now what? Do I do a 10K? Do another 5K? Maybe a sprint triathlon? Growth-oriented is a continual dedication to growth. So what I want you to do is everybody stretch your arm up. Now really stretch higher. And everybody just went up like 10%. That is the difference in stretching and the difference in the companies that are the top of the top and the people. We all go here and we feel that, and we go up like that. Think about that. So here are the questions on time. Are you doing the right things with your time? Are you doing them for the right reasons? Are you using your time the right way? What should you be doing less or more of, whether you're as an executive? If the bank came to you and said, or your boss or whoever, and said, you got 1 week to start really getting your time down and getting things going, or you're out of here, or we're shutting your line of credit off, would you use your time a little bit differently? I would. There's a lot of things that need to get off the list. In this model, which was from Covey, I'll just show you real quick. In our printing businesses, we operate here, urgent and important. Crisis, machine down, upset customer, proof didn't go out, plate maker broke, whatever it may be. We don't spend any time over here as a whole. This industry, I've seen it more and more. Ryan, we do need to sit down and talk about our plan. We got all this equipment we bought. I mean, we're not selling any of it. We don't know what to do, but maybe Q3 or Q4, maybe early 2014. If you don't ever deal with important things that are not a crisis or urgent, when are you going to get to them? There's never going to be a good time. Not in this industry. There's always a problem. And this is why people say, why do you consult with the industry you came from? Because I understand it. It doesn't freak me out when I walk in and people bail because a machine went down or a customer's there irate on a press check. Think about your time. Here's a couple things as we wrap up. The longer a problem sits, the worse it gets. That does not mean not solve problems. What it means is when there is some kind of underlying problem, if we're not getting under the iceberg, the problem's going to get worse. You're going to end up losing customers. You've heard the cliche, decision by indecision, but decision by indecision is not a strategy. Just simply going, well, I don't know, we're thinking about this, but we got to keep thinking about it. And ultimately, a decision is going to be made for you. And you're going to have to live with it because you didn't ever make a decision. Something will happen to make you make that decision. Behind every problem lies a solution. I've seen some of the most creative solutions in the world come from that kind of thinking. Another one you've heard before, paralysis by analysis is not a plan. Simply analyzing to death and never pulling the trigger. I'm not a aim, fire guy at all. But at some point, you've got to make a decision. You've got to quit analyzing and move forward. Where are you going? What road are you on? In Alice in Wonderland, Alice comes to the fork in the road, and she looks at Cheshire Cat and says, Cheshire Cat, which way do I go? And Cheshire Cat says, well, which way do you want to go, Alice? And Alice says, I don't know. And the Cheshire Cat says, it doesn't really matter which road you take then. So if you don't know which road you want to take, and you don't plan which road you take, it doesn't matter which road you take. It'll be decided for you. It's all part of everyone's in sales. Gandhi said it well, there's more to life than simply increasing its speed. We all have, whether you have one-person company or 10,000-person company, each of us has 168 hours in the week. No more, no less. You cannot say, I didn't have enough time. You can say, I did not make time. You're here, I'm here. We chose to be here. Unless we were held at gunpoint to be brought here, we chose to be here. But that means something else didn't get done. The world will keep moving rapidly. It's going to keep moving faster and faster. The opportunity, the everyone's in sales philosophy, is how do you bring the personal touch back to this world where no one wants to take time to do that? No one wants to have time to slow down and get to know people because it's so fast. On a tombstone, I don't want to be morbid, but you'll have something like that, 1958, the dash. And the dash represents something I did get from my dad. The dash was, he called it a dash of life. A dash represents, what was your life? He really summed that up well. In business, what do we do with our time? We pleased with it, or can we do better? And that's something to think about. There are 3 types of communicators. Those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, those who wonder what happened. Everyone's in salespeople are make things happen kind of people. See, we're all in communications. All of us, every one of us. Everyone's in sales because, well, everyone's in sales. Thank you so much for letting me be here, guys. I appreciate it.